All right, let's get into a really fascinating story. We're going to rewind the clock all the way back to the 1980s to talk about a Cold War hacker, a very determined astronomer, and a tiny, tiny accounting error. Now, I know what you're thinking. The 80s, that's ancient history. But trust me, the lessons from this real-life cyber hunt are, honestly, more critical for today's world than ever before.
It all started right here, with 75 cents. That's it. A simple rounding error on a computer usage bill at a national laboratory. You know, it was a discrepancy so small, so insignificant, that almost anyone else would have just shrugged, written it off, and gotten back to their day. But this tiny error, well, it didn't get ignored. And that brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. How on earth could something so small unravel a complex international spy operation? The answer? Well, it's a masterclass in what it means to be truly vigilant. So, let's set the scene. We're at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. And this is where our hero, Clifford Stoll, an astronomer who'd kind of recently become a systems administrator, first spots that 75-cent billing mistake. He wasn't some hotshot cybersecurity guru. He was just the guy in charge of keeping the computers running smoothly. And this is the key thing to remember. Stoll's greatest strengths weren't some deep technical wizardry. They were pure curiosity and good old-fashioned persistence. He just couldn't let that little anomaly go. He treated that 75-cent error not as a glitch, but as a clue. And in doing so, he became an accidental detective on a digital breadcrumb trail. And what followed this incredible months-long investigation, it literally became a blueprint for modern cybersecurity. The book he wrote about it, The Cuckoo's Egg, isn't just a great thriller, it's a goldmine of timeless principles for defending our networks today. So let's break them down. You can really boil his whole approach down to these 4 ideas. 1, he investigated every tiny clue, no matter how small. 2, he persisted for months, even when things got really complicated or the trail went cold. 3, he collaborated with everyone. We're talking the CIA, the FBI, you name it. And maybe most importantly, 4, he realized he wasn't just fighting code. He was fighting a person who was exploiting simple human error. And that really gets to the heart of it. The hacker didn't use some super sophisticated zero-day exploit to get in. No, he got in by finding accounts with ridiculously weak passwords and taking advantage of the fact that nobody was really watching the system closely. In the end, it was the human element that was the weakest link in the chain. So the big question is, how do these lessons from a 30-year-old spy story actually help us build a strategy for today's threats? I mean, things have changed, right? Well, as it turns out, the core principles, they're pretty much identical. Just look at the comparison. The tools have definitely evolved. Stoll was poring over physical paper logbooks. Today, we have automated security alerts popping up every second. He was dealing with simple, guessable passwords. We're fighting sophisticated phishing attacks and using multi-factor authentication. But the fundamental pillars, monitoring for weird stuff, having strong authentication, and collaborating with others, are exactly the same. And this all leads to a really critical takeaway. Cybersecurity isn't just a job for the IT department. It can't be. Just think about it. Stoll, an astronomer, became the first line of defense. The truth is, everyone in an organization has a role to play. It's a shared responsibility, period. And this responsibility plays out at every single level. You've got your employees on the front lines, right? Their job is to be the ones to spot those 75-cent errors. Then you've got management. Their job is to create a culture of trust where people feel safe reporting those errors without any fear of getting blamed. And at the very top, leadership has to put their money where their mouth is and provide the resources to show that this is a real business risk. This brings us to a really key concept, what we call a curiosity and reporting culture. It's an environment where somebody asking, hey, this looks a little weird, is not just accepted, it's encouraged and rewarded. Because without that psychological safety, those little clues, they go unreported. And that is exactly where the attackers find their way in. Now, building that kind of culture, it starts with the right training. And I'm not talking about those boring click-through compliance videos we all hate. I'm talking about active learning. Things like phishing drills, training people to spot unusual behavior, and making it incredibly simple to report something suspicious. It's all about gamifying vigilance to build that same detective mindset that Stoll himself had.
When you get all these pieces to come together, you have the right mindset, you have the right culture, and you have the right training, you create what you could call the vigilant organization. And that's a company that doesn't just sit back and react to threats, it proactively goes out and hunts for them. There are really 5 pillars that hold this whole culture up. You need buy-in from the top, you need empowered employees, you need clear protocols, and of course, continuous training. But that last piece on the chart, celebrating vigilance, that one is absolutely crucial. You have to actively reward the people who find the 75-cent errors. So if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The Cuckoo's egg taught us that the biggest risk we face isn't always the complex, cutting-edge attack. It's the tiny clue, the small anomaly, that gut feeling that something is just wrong that gets ignored. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about. Right now, inside your organization, what is the 75 cents error that's just waiting to be found? And maybe more importantly, who is looking for it? And are they truly empowered to speak up when they find it?